right.
Do you want me to double check on the?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead? It just is giving me the go live. Now it's giving, well, it just loaded. So yeah, go ahead and check that. And Nadi, I'm gonna get your links ready. And John, you don't have any links you want to share, right?
I do.
Okay,
Links,
great.
in what sense are links?
For people to get in touch with you, or I mean, anything that you mention in the broadcast, I can also post up, or you can post up. But if there's any, like, well, obviously we're gonna link to Nadi's Galactic Rose Geometry, Sacred Geometry site. But if there's anything you want
I don't
to
have
share,
any
Facebook
websites,
or anything.
right? I don't have Facebook accounts.
Okay, that's fine.
All I have is email.
No, that's fine. That's what I figured. That's why I haven't been posting anything on that, but that's fine. Okay. And Nadi, do you want me to share your Eventbrite as well? Or just your main site?
You're muted, Nadi.
Right, thank you. The event for tomorrow, which Eventbrite?
Just your Eventbrite link. Everything that you do is under your name. I'll just share your website. Maybe that's less confusing.
Okay.
Yeah, but like, yeah, let's see. I'm looking, I see 2 events, May 14th and May 15th. So, well, okay, I could definitely promote this one for tomorrow.
Yeah, that's ET Races in our Galactic Civilization with Krista. That'll be really fun.
Okay, great. That's great. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, guys. Are we live?
We are live on Facebook and YouTube.
Okay, beautiful. We have figured out the technology at last. Yay.
One quick question. Zenka, do you want me to edit this to put up on?
Yeah, I just sent you the intros and outros, so you should be good.
Okay, great.
All right, so we're live. So maybe we should just, or what were you going to say, Rob?
Well, I was just going to ask if it would be, if it'd be possible for me to get the actual PowerPoint for this, because I could extract the slides from it and drop it onto the timeline much easier than I can working with a PDF.
Okay, he just has one slide, right? Right? Do you have more than one slide, John? If so,
I have 19 slides.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to send it to Rob, and I'm going to hook you guys up right now via email.
It's saying I use a Mac, so it'll be in Keynote format.
That's fine. All right.
Great.
So you'll be co-host, John, and then you'll be able to share screen, and all the slides are easy access.
I've got them queued up. I don't know.
Yeah, as long as they're all queued up, and then you can they'll show up on your.
Right.
Right.
If I bring something up now, will it show up for everybody just as a test, just the title page?
Yes. Yeah, go ahead and do that.
You see that?
What you're going to want to do is hit share screen in the bottom middle. It's
right.
a blue button. And
there you go. Now.
Perfect.
Yes, we see it. We see it. Looks, oh, I'm so excited. This is going to be great.
This is
why haven't I seen that phrase where physics meets metaphysics? Like, that's the most brilliant phrase, right? Why haven't I seen that?
Timing. I usually use that one for talking about the singularity and the vector equilibrium, right? Where that's like, you know, where metaphysics and physics meet, like everybody's searching for that still point.
Oh my gosh, exciting. All right, so if you guys, welcome everybody who's joining us. We're going to get started in a few minutes. If you haven't taken the survey for this session, I'm just going to share it into the chat right now. And I don't know if you guys want to show these results, John, or if you looked at them recently, but we do have results here. Might be interesting for you to give us the answer on the first one, right?
If you go back up, could you expand other, it says
I did. I went to all 8 now. Yeah.
8. Oh, okay. Okay, thanks.
LSD, popular one.
And then
Everyone
we
knows about
have, okay, and then we've got these. So you guys will let me know if there's an appropriate time that you want to share these. During the interview, you can do that.
Cool.
I think they'll want to know the answer to the first one. If not, we can tease it out when we send out the full results.
All right.
So
I'm gonna try
welcome,
to-
Robert.
Wow.
Welcome, guys. Why don't you type it in the chat where you're calling in from? Welcome, Peg, Marcella, Ansela. Great to have you guys tonight.
I'm always curious about conversation, like group styles. Zenka, do you ask people to be on camera, or do you just let people chill, or is it whatever? Is it anything goes because it's a Friday night hangout?
No, well, if they decide to, we'll be mostly just having, once we get started, it'll just be you and John on the screen. So nobody else's image will be shown. But then if people want to share their contact experiences in the last half an hour, then they do have to sign a release to say that it's okay for us to share that.
Okay.
So welcome, Chester. Welcome, everyone.
It's so fun to see everyone come on. Oh my gosh.
I know.
Like all our friends, we're going to hang out.
I know. Paul, Veronica, Rob's kitty is here. Sharon. Awesome. Welcome, Desert Rose. What a cool, and Karena's here. Welcome, Karena. Welcome, Court. Awesome.
We're going to have like half the house, I think, is going to be filled with our Exo Studies class.
That's so great. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That's so great. All right. Don't forget to hit record, Rob, because I almost just did. That would have been fun. Hi, Romaine. So the news is getting newsy about the UAPs, man.
Give me the rundown. We're going to start with some Idaho russet potatoes, and we have them well aged by our vendor.
I'm going to go ahead and put some people on mute here.
I know when we don't have that, we end up getting fries that cook too fast, brown out too fast, because you're burning the sugars, and the fries are we put them in French
Rob,
fry.
can you help me mute people?
Wash them, then we
All right. For some reason, I wasn't able to do it with the Romaine's iPad.
Just have to turn up your volume.
Yeah, I used to have the mute on join button checked, but these Zoom things get unchecked sometimes. Well, Nutty, we're waiting for you here in Sedona with open arms.
I am counting the days. I will leave Sunday, and
Oh my gosh.
yeah, it's
Wow.
I'm ready to come back. Yeah.
Welcome, Daniel. Great to see you. Welcome, Hunter. Awesome. Yeah, if you guys want to type in where you're from, where you're calling in from in the chat, that would be awesome. Tomo, welcome, Lisa. We're about to get started here.
Oh,
Awesome. Welcome, Patricia, Linda.
BC, Canada in the house. Awesome.
Ooh.
I don't know who just said that. Let's see. Was that Daniel? Yeah.
Yes, Daniel's from Canada. All right, guys. Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to tonight's Exo Metaverse Hangout call that we do on the second Fridays and the fourth Fridays of every month. So we're so excited to have everybody here tonight. One of the things we like to do is do 60 seconds before we really get going, where we just close our eyes for 60 seconds, kind of shake off the day and enjoy the presence of everyone here before we get going. So Rob, if you can stay on the mute button while we do this, and we'll just check back in 60 seconds. Here we go. Awesome, everyone. Thank you. So for those of you that have never been on an Exo Metaverse call, we're going to spend half an hour. Nadi Hanna is going to interview John Ramirez, and I'll tell you a little bit about these guys in a minute. And then you're going to have a chance 30 minutes to go into a breakout group. This is a chance for you guys to hang out with each other. Nadi and John will give you guys a prompt, but you can always just check in with each other at that time during your time. You don't have to join the breakout groups if you want to stay into the main interview. The main interview, thanks to Rob, will be posted on YouTube, so you're not going to miss anything by going into the breakout groups. Welcome, Greg. And then the last half an hour, you'll have a chance to share your contact experience. Was that with a radio? Was that in meditation? Was that in a dream? Was that in your backyard? So we want to hear from you. We're collecting stories. This is part of the citizens disclosure movement. A lot of the work that ET Let's Talk is doing as well. So the Exo Metaverse is a citizen science platform, right, to explore other dimensions and non-human intelligences. And we want to kind of take out the middlemen in all this and build a consortium of organizations that are working in this field and support them with cutting edge, next level software that we can all share for free. We just got our nonprofits filed and we are live on that last week. So we're really excited about that. And we have consortium members like ET Let's Talk, right? We do an amazing map for them every month. And Nadi Hanna is also in our consortium here. She's from Galactic Rose Sacred Geometry, and she does these incredible workshops many times per month. I'm going to share her link here in the chat. And she's really exploring the so many interesting topics.
Can you turn the speakers up on the, I think that's
the, Rob, if you can help me mute people.
Yeah, the big one, I think.
So, yeah, so yeah, and so if you know organizations, you know, our goal is really to be a network of networks. So if you know an organization that's working in disclosure, that's working in other, you know, understanding other dimensions, or that is, in this, we want them part of our family. We want to support them with this software and technology. So if we meet once a month on Thursdays, right? Karen is here, Rob's here. We have Greg who's programming, Daniel who's programming. All these people that are part of the consortium are here tonight. And we welcome you, if you have an organization, to join us for that strategy meeting that we have, so we can sync our efforts as this process of disclosure goes by. So like I said, Nadia is incredible. She has invited one of her friends that she has met in the Exo Studies class, which is this year-long deep dive into everything to do with this phenomenon, right? Every week they take these new topics. It's the basis for a master's and a PhD program that Sean is doing. He was also one of our interviewees. So John Ramirez has worked his whole life, starting with his curiosity, and he's worked in the electromagnetic signature lab, right? Understanding electronic information in the CIA. And he's retired now. He's really able to pursue something that he's been fascinated with his whole life. So I'm going to hand it over to Nadia and John. Thanks for being here. And thanks for doing this incredible interview tonight. And here we go.
Thank you, Zenka. It is just feels brilliant to be here. It just feels really generative about really, I would say cutting edge, but just really alive, frontiers of us not being alone in the universe, of, the deeper questions of life. And of course, when I, wanted to interview somebody for this call, it was John, who is completely fascinating when he's talking about the metaphysics of life and cutting edge, extraterrestrials, the exo world, and really, really happy to have this opportunity to talk with him. So you mentioned the Exo Studies call, the year-long course, and that is led by Sean Esbjorn Hargens. And John joined us about a couple weeks ago. And as soon as he dropped in with his information, we were all just hooked. Like, we just wanted more. And so when you asked, do you know anybody fascinating to interview? I said, I absolutely know somebody fascinating. And so John came in, to my world through the Exo Studies class. But interestingly enough, he came in first through a light language call that I was hosting. And I wanted to get together with people to explore what light language is in, it's nonlinear galactic communication, channeled transmission information. And he joined that call. And it was fascinating because he and I were talking light language. He saw this code. I shared a piece of art and he saw this code, and he was talking about how it was like John, I hope if I botch this, just clarify, please. It was like a map home. It was like a star map home for him. And he spoke up and shared that. I was like, oh my God, this is a brother. Here we go. So we met on my call, and then totally surprisingly, the next day he showed up on this Exo Studies call. And I was like, talking about being a former CIA officer, and the mismatch between the two, like the dissonance. I was just so curious. And every time he shares his information, it's fascinating across the whole spectrum. That's the thing, is he's not like this, a stereotypical CIA agent where it's, completely technical and, ship recovery or, technology or the things on the survey, all of the things on the survey. He's much more rounded than that. And so he and I were talking, and the passion here is to talk about the metaphysics of the CIA, right? And and like open up the concept of what it means to be in an agency that has access, like backdoor access. So he's got all that. I'm so excited to, that's kind of my informal intro of how we know each other, and he'll launch with all of his experience, 25 years as an officer. And I'm so looking forward. I think he's pretty much just gonna take off and share some of his experiences, and we'll just flow with it and see what comes of it. But you know, easy flow. So John, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. And first of all, the CIA would like for me to say this as a disclaimer, that everything that you hear and see does not in any way reflect the plans, policies, intentions of the Central Intelligence Agency. I'm appearing as a private citizen who happened to have worked for CIA for 25 years, from 1984 to 2009. So I've been retired quite some time now, a dozen years. And what I wanted to talk about was how physics and metaphysics actually share similar worlds. And I'm going to bring in a lot of different things that you may not see as related, but they are related through this thing called electromagnetic phenomena. And so I'm going to just launch into a very casual slide presentation. And don't worry, there's not a lot to read. It's a lot of pictures. I'm going to talk to the slides, and hopefully that might inspire some questions on your part that after I finish, that we can probably discuss about. I also want to talk about my personal journey to where I'm at, where I'm sitting here right now in Oro Valley, Arizona, not too far from where Zinca's at, about 3 hours south of where Zinca's at, and how I came to be where I'm at. And so I'm going to launch into this. It's physics for people who hate physics. I'm going to make it likable. And so let's see if I can succeed. And here we go with the first slide. And I'm going to see if I can share it. All right. Hopefully you can see that.
Yep, we're good.
Okay, so the electromagnetic basis for consciousness, where physics communes with metaphysics. Now, first of all, I'm going to describe what electromagnetism is and what the spectrum is. So on Earth, this is the electromagnetic spectrum. And you see things that are familiar to you. For example, the rainbow here is light. And this is in no way a scaled horizontal line. The wavelengths here I'll describe later. If this was actually to scale, I could not show 1 kilometer on this screen. But this little sliver of light is basically a thinner than a human hair if I actually had this to scale. This just shows you the relative positions. And thanks to Mother Earth, she protects us from a lot of harmful things that may come from electromagnetic emanations, such as ultraviolet rays, such as gamma rays and X-rays. They're blocked by the atmosphere. So when we look up into space, you know, all we see is this tiny little sliver. There's more out there that we cannot see. And when you hear about raising one's frequency, what we really mean is, let's go up here beyond what we can see. This is the infrared region. And our senses are no longer, our senses cannot detect anything beyond what you see as the rainbow. Little bit past the red mark is red, and beyond that, under it is infrared. Now, humans can actually feel infrared. That's the rays. If you've ever been into an infrared sauna, which I highly recommend, very therapeutic, you can actually feel the heat of infrared energy. Ultraviolet is much, much higher frequency, and that's very bad for one's eyes, and I'll explain why later. And so again, there is visible light and just a sliver. Now here is the first physics you're going to see. This is known as a sine wave, a sinusoidal wave. The only difference between my voice, which is between 20 hertz and 20 kilohertz, or 20,000 cycles per second, I'll try to use non-physics terms. So the human ear can hear 20 cycles to 20,000 cycles per second. The only difference between what your ears can hear and gamma rays is this. This is the wavelength of energy. And so I'm going to play this first video, which shows light. And I'm sure you're all familiar with the prism. Interesting to note that the prism is like a pyramid. And that's very interesting to me that it's a pyramid. But here's white light. And when it goes through this prism, it's refracted or bent to its different components. And so here's infrared, the red. You can see that the peaks and valleys are separated much further apart than the ultraviolet, which are much closer apart. So basically, what we see as light can be described as different wavelengths of energy. And that's the only thing that differentiates what your eyes see as red and what your eyes see as purple or violet. It's just the wavelength. So getting back to my presentation, here's what you're seeing, just one little sinusoid, which turned pink all of a sudden. That's interesting. Okay. So from the peak of this wave to the peak of this wave, that's lambda. That's what physicists call lambda. That's the wavelength. And just to show you, I have my slinky tool right here, if you see that. Let me stop share just for a second. Okay. So here's my little slinky toy. Okay. So your brain waves are like between like a few cycles per second to like 40 cycles per second. So let's say that is your brain wave. All right. And now we're going to go a little bit closer. This is where whales talk. It's still energy that's sinusoidal, this little pattern of hills and valleys. This is whale song. And if you go a little bit closer, this is what your human ears can hear. And as you keep going closer and closer, you get into something called ultrasound, what you cannot hear, but your dog can hear very well beyond human hearing. If we keep collapsing this and the distance becomes very tight, you're going to have subatomic particles, the energy of subatomic particles. So from this to this, it's all energy. The only difference is the distance between the peaks of that energy. That's all it is. So let me get back to my presentation. Okay, so I'm going to show you more of a three-dimensional view of how this energy is manifested in our universe, throughout the universe, no matter where you are in the universe. There's a relationship between magnetism and electricity. And let me show that to you next.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Anytime there's a magnetic field and an electric field, you're going to have this relationship, this synchronicity. As you can see, when it comes back to this null line of 0, they all meet. And then when one goes low, the other goes way out here, and they all come back again. So when you have magnetism and electricity, that's electromagnetic energy. All the energy of electromagnetism can be described in this very simplistic diagram, and it has a vector. It has what's known as a vector. It has direction. This energy can travel from place to place. And in our home electrical systems, they travel through copper wire. On your cell phone, they travel through the air. Now, keeping in mind that relationship between electricity and magnetism, this is another way to look at it in terms of three-dimensional field. If you recall, you saw one line going horizontal and another line going perpendicular. And physicists call this a toroidal line if it's going horizontal, and a palladial line if it's going in a vertical direction. And I'm going to show you the significance of this. Here's something that you might find it familiar. Think about Merkaba. So here is a three-dimensional view of an electromagnetic field. You have lines going from one pole to another pole, and lines going, let's say, around. Let's call it an equator, going around. And so keep that image in mind. And how is this used? Well, this is very powerful. This is very powerful imagery because they have discovered that they can harness this relationship to build an infinite supply of power using nuclear energy. That's the cutting edge of physics right now, is using this to create nuclear energy. Now, when you hear nuclear, I'm sure you're thinking bad things like nuclear radiation. That's not good. Nuclear weapons. That's not good. But this is remarkable because what makes nuclear bad is that they were harnessing the electromagnetic energy that holds the nucleus, that is the protons and the neutrons of a uranium atom. And the uranium atom is by nature radioactive. It produces these other types of particles and other wavelengths I showed you that are more like gamma rays up there, X-rays, and they're very harmful to the human body, and they produce a tremendous amount of heat. And so that's the fireball that you see, the mushroom cloud is this ball of heat. Well, nuclear power that originally started was based on splitting the nucleus of a uranium atom. So you get a tremendous amount of heat. And the only reason why they use that heat is to heat water. And that water gets superheated into steam. And guess what? You basically have the dynamos at Niagara Falls. Basically, they're just using the steam to turn little dynamos, and that dynamo would create electricity. That's all nuclear power is, but it's terrible if something happens to that nuclear power plant, because then all of that radiation from the uranium gets released. This is called a fusion machine. Instead of splitting the atom, they're squeezing the atom. And when you squeeze the atom, it also releases energy. But instead of uranium, you know what they use here? They use the power of water. Water, simple H2O, but they treat the water so that it has extra neutrons in it. And when they squeeze this type of water called heavy water, called tritium, when they squeeze it, it produces this pink field. This is a plasma electric current. So back to where we were looking at, you saw energy going in an up and down direction, and you saw energy going around and around, more like polar energy, and then you got equatorial energy. Think of it as the planet Earth. This is the power that the Earth has, because if you think about the Earth, you think about the North and South poles and how magnetic lines go from one pole to the other. And when it does that, it creates electricity all over. That's how lightning happens. And now what they're doing is squeezing the power out of water to create this pink plasma field. And this is pure energy with absolutely no radioactivity. And this energy exists inside the space of that water molecule, inside the hydrogen and oxygen. Whatever holds the hydrogen atoms and oxygen atoms, what holds the electrons together, they're utilizing the energy that is freely available. This is really 0 point energy. It's energy that's there, that's neither created nor destroyed. It's always there. And so when science is able to do this, in the future, there will be limitless amounts of energy, because guess what the world has a lot of? Guess what you have a lot of? Water. And the only output of this is this energy and steam, not radioactivity. This is a real thing. They're building it now, and they're trying to test it by 2024. It's being built in France.
And when you say they, John, is this like direct reference to the CIA? Is this
No, I'm talking about they, meaning I should say the Department of Energy partnering with other departments of energy, other ministries of energy in Asia and in Europe together as a consortium, trying to bring this type of fusion nuclear energy to the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
Now, going back to this, and I said, think about the Earth. Well, let's go to the Earth. Doesn't that look familiar? Doesn't that look like everything I showed you so far? That you have a North and South pole. And we all know that the poles are magnetic. And contrary to the popular belief, the North magnetic pole is actually at the South geographic pole. The magnetic flow of the Earth goes from inside the Earth, and there's a little magnet here to represent the iron core that spins around that creates this energy to happen. And it goes from north out of the South geographic pole back up. And I don't know why it keeps turning pink. And then back to the north. And around it, there's electric fields. Now, and Zinka lives in Sedona, and there's vortexes in Sedona. You know what Sedona has? You know what Arizona has more than any other state? What is the nickname for Arizona? It's the copper state. All right, now think about a battery. Think about the Duracell copper top battery. Arizona has a lot of copper. The other thing Arizona has is a lot of an iron ore called magnetite. And the other thing Arizona has are a lot of underground reservoirs of water that is flowing under the ground. So when you get copper and magnetite together with that medium of water flowing under the ground, you're going to get little pockets of energy, of magnetic energy, which we call vortexes. And so happens Sedona has more than its fair share in the state of these vortexes coming from the Earth. Everything in nature, including animals, have a magnetic sense. Sharks, cetaceans have a strong magnetic sense. They use Earth's magnetic field to navigate. In fact, they can create their own electric currents, just them going through the water. The friction of these large sea creatures going through the water creates an electric field. And that field, they have sensors inside their bodies that can determine the strength of that field in relation to Earth's magnetic field. They use that to navigate under the water. So what happens when the sun, which also has a strong magnetic field, sometimes the sun misbehaves and creates more of that magnetic field than it's supposed to? Well, it affects a solar storm affects our electronics, because that's man-made, human-made. We made these things, and it messes up electronics. But for our friends in the sea, it really messes up their navigation. And so what happens is when there's a solar storm, it says here, the sun occasionally releases bursts of electromagnetic radiation, which may disorient whales. A new study finds, this is a brand new study saying this is why whales beach themselves. They get lost, they get confused, because nature provided them with a magnetic built-in compass to navigate where they need to go. And when the sun throws that off by providing more electromagnetic field than is necessary, the whales get lost and they beach themselves. Well, I mentioned animals. I mentioned, well, birds have this magnetic sense as well. Whales do, we know that. Sharks, dolphins. How about humans? How about us? Exciting research at the California Institute of Technology has discovered that humans have a magnetic sense built in. But like the appendix in all humans, it's not, whatever it was, we lost it. We don't have it anymore. but they have found that by isolating a test subject inside what's known as a Faraday cage, and then passing different fields through it, like Earth's magnetic field, and also an applied field in any direction, and then subtracting the Earth from it, they were able to detect inside this Faraday cage an EEG machine that picked up brain waves that looked like magnetoreception, this property that whales have. So magnetoreception is a quality that humans have that is no longer available to us, but I will show you how it is. The heart has a magnetic field. The heart actually has a field that mimics all of the fields of nature, of the earth, of the sun. And you can see here 2 humans, and that same magnetic field, which goes from one part of the body to another, top and bottom, and also circulates around in a sphere. When you get close to another person who resonates like your magnetic field, you're going to feel a strong attraction to them. When you get near a person who does not have a resonance with your field, you're not. So there's actually is some science to this law of attraction. And it could be this magnetic field that your body has. And you're not conscious of it. Everybody has it, but you can feel it. You can definitely feel it.
So, John?
Yes.
I want to pause for a second. I want to check in with Zenka. I think we're at the half an hour.
It's fine. Let's let him finish, and then we'll do breakout groups after that. So go ahead. It's fine.
Okay.
Thanks for checking in, Nutty.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is basically just a slide showing you that, it's what we need to do is have this resonance of this field and not have the noise from negative emotions that can distort that field, much like the way too much solar magnetism distorts the navigation ability of whales. So how do we develop this? How do we develop this for ourselves? Well, this is what happens when you actually meditate. You're actually activating that innate magnetic field inside your heart. That's why meditation works. You're actually tuning yourself to the magnetic fields of the universe, of the earth. And so when people meditate, they usually imagine this sphere of light from within, sending that light through the chakras down to your feet, to the earth, and back up through your crown chakra to the universe and back down again. All you're doing is trying to realign your fields with that of the universe. And when you do that, remarkable things happen. Because when you do that, you make this leap in consciousness. Your heart beats with the earth's heart. Instead of fear, your heart beats with love. And your heart joins, instead of you, the individual, you join the galactic heart, because everything in the universe has this electromagnetic field permeating all over it. And this needs no explanation for those who are familiar with the Merkaba field. And what you're doing is you're rotating that field in alignment. And when you rotate that field in alignment, just like I showed you of the fusion reactor producing this plasma, you actually can produce energy fields around you, which, by the way, can be detected from space. The US government has detected Merkaba fields from space. An Air Force officer from the US Air Force Research Labs approached Druvalo, and I can't pronounce his last name, I always trip up.
Melchizedek.
Yes, thank you. And they actually told him that we can see your Merkaba fields from space. Our sensors can see them.
Zenka just lost it. That's so great. It's true. It's true.
And so when you have that alignment with your fields, with the universe's fields, with this electromagnetic energy that is everywhere in the universe, you're also aligning yourself with the language of those with higher consciousness. And this is just an illustration showing you that when you are aligned with higher consciousness, your electromagnetic receptors that are within you that have not been developed, because through meditative practices of taking care of your body, just think of your body as a container. You have a symbiotic relationship with a sentient being, which is your light being within you. And that light being wants to communicate with you, because light being has more connection with the higher consciousness. It itself is a higher consciousness, and it dwells within you. It's what religion calls a soul. In every religion, there's a soul. That soul is that field that's within you. And through meditative practices, then you can align yourself with it, and people get messages. And those with very developed electromagnetic fields, we call them channelers. That's how they can channel. It's a transmission line through higher consciousness. And basically, that is my presentation. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was spectacular. I love the visuals. And I know that we're going to launch into, for those who want to go to breakouts, and that's an awesome aspect of this, the Exo Metaverse Hangouts. But I want to throw out a little teaser in that, you and I had talked about how, whether you want to call it contact experience or had a significant download in your early years, that you kept being informed and sort of had access to all this information that you just shared, even though you had no way of knowing these things, right? You kept getting downloads, and you're going to talk about the source of that. And I think that's where we're going to go into next, just to let everybody know we're going to nibble at some of his, the guidance and, bridge the physics with the metaphysics.
Sure. And you want me to launch into that now before the breakout? I can do that very quickly, or wait?
Oh yeah, well, why don't you talk a little bit about it, and then we'll go into breakout groups. That's
okay.
fine.
So for me, when I was about 4 or 5 years old, I had these recurring dreams or visions of me being led by a woman into a house that looked like a Victorian house. There was nothing around it except this, like a walkway through a gate, walk through the gate, and there's what I would call a Victorian house, the one with the little turret to one side. Nice little A-frame house with a nice little porch outside. And she would lead me to it, walk in, and sometimes I'll go up the stairs to the left. Sometimes I'll go on the first floor to the left. On either floor, I would be led into an examination room where a doctor, looking like a Victorian doctor, and all around me were like Victorian looking medical equipment, tables and whatnot, everything looks very Victorian. The cabinets, the jars where they would store pharmaceuticals of the day, and they would examine me. And I had this many times. I asked my mother about it, and she said, "There's no such thing. I never took you to any such place, never." And then my parents realized that I was always interested in space, talking about space. I couldn't stop talking about space. They bought me a telescope. And I used to go out with my telescope, and one of the greatest joys of my early life, and I still remember, was when I actually found the Andromeda Galaxy, that telescope in Cassiopeia. And I just stared at it. And it was just a little disc, because it was just not a professional telescope, but something you give a kid. But I found it. And I used to stare up there. And I used to, what I used to ask myself? I used to ask myself, I wonder who's staring back at me, wondering if I'm staring at them. And that was just a profound experience for me. Later, as I grew into my teen years, we moved to a house, and for some reason, outside of my bedroom, I wanted to plant sunflower seeds. And for the strangest reason, I said, I want to plant these sunflower seeds so they know where to find me, because I want them to find me. And sure enough, they found me. And I remember being lifted out of my bedroom through that screen window up into a craft. And I remember being held in the hands of some being. And this corridor was circular, and it was all lit up in like the most brilliant white without having any lights. And there the dream stopped. But guess what happened? The next day there were markings on my body. There were markings on I could not explain. And then as I grew up in my older teen years, in my high school years, I actually had this dream or vision of being in a place where nothing but light beings around me. And then I was just floating with these fellow light beings. I felt like I was really home, that this is where I belong. And a voice came and said, voice came over and said, it's time for you to go back. Choose who do you want to be this time? Who do you want to be this time? And I looked over this field of, the only way I can describe it is imagine a giant infinite egg carton full of eggs. And instead of eggs, imagine that they're like spheres of different colors swirling around it, smoky colors, all brightly lit. And I picked one, it was blue and white. And I said, I want to be this one. And boom, I remember being born. And so that was just always been profound. And I've always had these inklings of what I'm going to do. I knew what school I was going to go to. I knew I would be married very late in life, which happened to me. I went to the school I thought I would go to. I knew I would be in the Navy, and I was in the Navy. And I also knew I was going to go to the CIA, because in the 7th or 8th grade, I had to write a vocational kind of essay. What do you want to be when you grow up? Remember those? And I was the only one that wanted to be a spy in the CIA. And everybody laughed at me, of course. They didn't laugh 25 years later at my class reunion. So I had that as well. And so something led me to CIA, something did. And from there, I discovered many interesting things. Many things that you would consider maybe some aspects of disclosure, that things were actually true. And most recently, Convergence 2020, if you're participating in that, Mark Sims had a little session with his radios where he toned hue through the radios. And sure enough, there was a conscious, Close Encounters 6 experience where my wife and I saw over the Catalina Mountains of Tucson, this brilliant white orb appear over the mountains. It blinked in, stayed for a few seconds, and blinked out. And both my wife and I received messages. And the message for me, and I have not revealed this before, but I'll reveal it to you. The message is that you have a message to share. You have knowledge to share, and we're waiting for you to share it. There will be a pathway. You will meet people. You will be participating in some way of being able to share these. And your purpose here, you need to make contact with an individual, because that individual is looking for you to make contact with them. You don't know who it is yet, but you will meet them and you will share with them something that they've been wondering about all their lives. And so that's my contact experience. And I'm sure many of you have had many profound ones just like that.
Spectacular. I'm wondering,
Wow, that was amazing.
yeah, there was a little bit of a teaser in there of, the CIA and the disclosure, and I went, okay, were all the survey questions true? Do you want to just, that seems
yes,
like
all the survey questions.
Oh, do we have to wait?
No, that's fine. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead. That's fine.
Yeah, everything I said, as far as picked which ones the COA was involved in, every one of them was true. Every single one of them was true. And of course, I put an easy one in there of destabilizing governments, and everybody knows that one. But there's 2 different CIAs. There's a CIA between 1947 and 1977. That was one CIA. Then there's a CIA between 1977 and 1982, 81, 82. That was an intermediate CIA. And then we're in a modern CIA. The early CIA was the bad CIA that you all read about, that you all read books about. They make movies about the bad CIA. We're nowhere near like that anymore. We're not like that. You'll find officers talking about what I talk about more often than what you see in the movies. We're not the Bourne identity. We're nowhere not like that. And so all of those were true.
Wow. So much to reconcile. God, that's amazing. Okay, all right. Where are we going, Zenka? That's just, I just want to
you
keep
guys.
going. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So we are going to keep going with this interview, and it's also going to be recorded up on the Exo Metaverse YouTube account. So look for that. And right now we're going to go into breakout groups. For anybody that wants to join the great breakout groups, you're going to hit yes. If you don't want to go, you just stay here. And the breakout groups, it's a little bit hard to navigate since not everybody goes into them. So there's going to be the first couple of minutes where I'm going to be trying to get a small number of people in each group, right? So the ideal number is 4. And you'll have about 4 minutes each to share how electromagnetic fields have been experienced by you. Have you noticed someone else? Have you felt your chakras being tuned? You can talk about a contact experience you had, because we're going to come back and share some of those. And you can also talk about any support that you need in your life right now. Those 4 minutes are your minutes to talk. If you want feedback from other people, if you want interaction, you can ask for it, but otherwise it's your chance, okay, to express yourself and speak. And we'll have one timekeeper per group, and that way we can keep things moving. And I will go ahead right now and set up the groups. Okay, so here we go. Okay, John and Natty, don't join those groups, please. Just sometimes, because I just want to make sure. Okay, so you guys go ahead and continue with the interview here.
Awesome. Okay, great. So, so many places I want to go. So John, the message that came to you, the downloads with you and your wife from the orb at the CE, at the convergence, I'm going to go back to that moment. Can we go there together?
Sure.
Okay, great. And, I also want to just let you riff, and you got the message of, you have important things to share, and you're going to be connecting with people who are going to help you do that. Do you have a clear idea of what the message is that you're sharing? I mean, you've shared so much in this past hour. It could really be, do you think it's any one thing, or is it everything? Or, have you dipped into that?
It's very personal for an individual. Very, very personal.
Right. Yeah.
In general, what I'm doing through Exo studies, and I will also be joining Sean in his Everything You Want to Know About UFOs, or whatever that's called, the short course. Mm-hmm. There are many things I shared in that realm that I guess I give some level of verification to, because a lot of people get inklings of this and that and whatever. Some of them are conspiracy theories. Some of them are really, really, really true. Mm-hmm. And so they're seeking validation. If anything, what disclosure by the government, official disclosure, will do is to validate what we already verified for ourselves. Okay. I don't need President Biden to stand up before a podium and tell me that they're extraterrestrials. I know that already. I don't need it. But some people do. Some people need that validation. That's fine. If that serves a purpose for validation, that's fine. And I always tell people, I don't need NASA and Elon Musk's SpaceX to go out in space. My spaceship is what you see right here before you. All of us have the ability to travel if you know how. If you, like I was saying before, if you tune your electromagnetic fields, if you take care of your body, watch what you eat and drink, watch what you put into your body. Let's get rid of the poisons that are in our food, manufactured by big agriculture. Try to seek out natural ways of helping you, because if you go to big pharma, all they're treating are the symptoms created by the other drugs you're taking. And you take drug after drug after drug. There are many natural ways of healing yourself through tuning yourself. The body is very powerful. It has everything it needs to fix itself. But we forgot how to do that. And I think in the near future, we will soon discover those ways as we become more awakened and aware of our real true natures.
Yeah. Okay, I have so many questions. I want to table a question so that maybe we get back to it. But you and I had talked a lot about meditation practices, and I really would love to touch on that at some point if we get to. But the question that just popped in for me is, as I'm taking everything that you're saying in, And, you know, we've been talking about this metaphysics and physics. And so you've got this whole contact, you know, higher consciousness connection and being informed and being connected to, you know, whether it's star nations or however you would refer to it. You've got that reality going on. And then you've got, you know, being in the CIA and that was, you know, the secondary CIA. That was cool to learn that there were two different kinds or eras, you know. And so being in the CIA with all of the technical and the scientific and the you know, practical application strategies, you know, for lack of better words. And so you're moving in this world with two very different realities. And I know most of us do, right? This is what Sean has talked about. Oh no, it's been so long. Somebody help me out. Not doubleness, right? Where we've got two existing realities that may not mesh. And I'm wondering, like, were you an odd duck at the CIA, or like, did you have good company? You had good company. Okay, will you just say a little bit about that?
Yes, I've met more people who were experiencers in CIA than anywhere else except for communities like this.
Yeah.
For some reason, they were all led to be there. And they had the wherewithal then with the accesses. We have carved on our lobby a verse from the New Testament. I'm paraphrasing, but you shall know the truth and the truth shall make you free. And we are observers and discoverers of truth. And our job is to present that truth to those who we entrust to make decisions, policy decisions on our behalf. If you don't like what the CIA is doing, look at who people voted for, because we will in fact mirror in some cases who people have elected. And I use this as an example. How do we know about President Trump's Ukraine call? How do we know who actually brought it to light? It was a CIA officer who blew the whistle. A CIA officer, unafraid, because he knew the truth, that blew the whistle, that started everything, the avalanche of everything falling down. That's the best way I can say it. It's just that I'm in contact with people now who tell me things, that they know I'm part of this group, they know that I'm part of Exo Studies, and they also are very interested. And we used to discuss back in Coast to Coast AM, we used to have lunchtime discussions of us getting together, talking about, you know, what did you hear on Coast to Coast AM last night? You know, oh yes. But we had the access to actually look into what many people said. And a lot of people, unfortunately, came on these shows that were complete fabricators. They just threw in a lot of poison in ufology, which really hurt me. And I said, Chief, if I ever had a chance to clear that up, I want to do that. I used to be a database administrator of a discussion group. Basically, it's like the Exo Studies, all of the different various discussion groups we had, and we talked about everything. You know what some of the things we talked about?
No, that's why we're here, is we want to know.
The Anunnaki, the existence of possible, the Anunnaki, the existence of humans are still here that broke away from the main civilization. The existence of Atlantis, of the Lemuria, the fact that we may have been seeded, deliberately, the fact that Mars was full of life at one time, the fact that there's a galactic headquarters, and there's actual CIA documents through technical remote viewing that was moderated or facilitated by someone you might know named Major Ed Dames. And the remote viewer was Mel Riley. And he saw this galactic headquarters and described it in great detail. We know these things. So I would say the CIA was just rich in that environment of discovering things that other people might take for granted or not even discuss. We shut down the remote viewing program because some very conservative politicians thought that we were playing with demonic forces. And they made a big stink about it, and they had the power of the purse, and they took all the money away. So what do we do? So all those remote viewers went to places like the Monroe Institute, the Universal Light Center in Black Mountain, North Carolina, the Farsight Institute in Atlanta, Georgia, to continue this remote viewing. And so I would say, you know, it was not unusual. I was not unusual at all.
Okay. Okay. So looks like Zenka's got a question. Should we just go with that, Zenka? Because I mean, I have
no. Yeah, go for it. You do your thing, but this is just there. I mean, it's just, you know, I don't know.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think
Curious mind.
if questions do come in, I mean, that's the whole idea, is that this is generative and it's so juicy. So yeah, so you were in good company and you had meetings to get together and talk about these things with like-minded. And, you know, I love that you said, you know, for some reason we were drawn to the CIA. You know, I think there's a real curious point in there, like, ooh, what was it? Like, did you figure out the connectivity? Did you, you know, were you able to go into it while navigating your day-to-day life in the CIA? So that's all this fun curiosity. And where that takes me is, like, I'm really struck by this duality, right? Or seemingly duality, right? And it was manifest in the fact that I met you through a light language class and you kind of referenced the CIA. I thought, oh, that's cool. And then come to find out, you 25 years a retired CIA officer. And so there's part of me of like, you know, what was the psychology? How did you merge this place where it seems like maybe you went into the CIA to access some of that higher consciousness, right? That was a route that you took. But I hope I can articulate this. You know,
Yes.
What was the psychology of wanting a map home and learning about darker technologies that are influencing the world? You know, it's fascinating, that part of it.
Yes. I was always interested in the nuts and bolts side of ufology. And a lot of people are more into the nuts and bolts side. I find that to be very boring. I am more interested in the side of higher consciousness. To me, it's fascinating, the higher consciousness aspect of ufology. And a lot of people don't go there because they're afraid to go there. They think it's too bizarre. I remember we had a brilliant physicist in ufology. He's passed. I admired him a great deal. His name was Stanton Friedman. And he was the last physicist, or true physicist in ufology. We don't have someone of that caliber right now who has that kind of reach. But he never wanted to bridge that. When I used to attend, okay, here's one. I used to attend CIA, I used to attend UFO conferences, MUFON, you name it. I was there. I was there with CIA colleagues. And before I could go, it's required by office security. Anytime you participate in external activities, you have to file a permission to do so. And so I would say, I'm going to the UFO conference and here it's at, and it's on this date and this date, and I'm going to stay here, and here are my flights. And they always bless me, go, fine. And so there's an aspect of CIA that accepts all that. And also during my reinvestigations, every 5 years we get reinvestigated so that we can continue our clearances, but make sure that we're not abusing our privilege of having this very secret information. And they ask me, what is your hobby, Mr. Ramirez? And I go, oh, I like to research UFOs. I like to research extraterrestrials. And so, oh, okay. And they write that down. It's not like, what, you're crazy. No, they write it down. I'm not the only one doing this. And the only time that backfired on me is when some of my officers were being briefed on these secret Navy programs. And because of my interest in ufology, they didn't want me as part of this program, so they don't want someone who might have been tainted with some kind of preconceived views or notions of ufology. So I couldn't get briefed into these Navy programs. The other program I didn't get briefed in was when we saw orbs. And I could talk about orbs a little bit. We saw a lot of orbs. This leads into ATIP and everything that's happening with the UAP task force and this report that's supposed to be coming out in the spring. We saw these orbs a long time ago when we finally turned on we finally developed and turned on certain sensors in our spacecraft that were able to look into wavelengths of light that we previously could not see. And sure enough, we saw all of these orbs. And they were not like random orbs of nature. They were not like something induced by solar winds or solar magnetism. These were flying. They were together. They were intelligently controlled and flying together with a purpose. What is that? Are they Russian? Are they Chinese? They're not ours. That launched an entire study into these. And as part of that study, I sent 2 of my engineers. Remember, they're electromagnetic engineers. I worked in a field actually called ELINT, E-L-I-N-T, which is a lot of words. It stands for electronic intelligence. It's a type of signals intelligence, the kind that Edward Snowden revealed. This is signals intelligence in the electromagnetic spectrum, not radios and communications and cell phones that Snowden revealed about. This is like more higher frequencies. And they got briefed and they went to a place where a lot of folks got together to talk about this. They came back and they said they got read into some very special access programs. I was not read into this. I got read into a level as a supervisor. You lose all the fun. All your people get all the fun. And I was read into the point where I can perform my supervisory duties. But I wasn't read into the actual meat of the subject matter. But they came back and they go, and I hope I'm not getting them into trouble. They came back, hey, John, you know everything you ever heard about Roswell? And I said, yep. And they go, yep. It's my affirmation that Roswell actually happened. And I've had other affirmations since then that I cannot reveal. If I did reveal them, I don't know what would happen to me. I'll probably call before the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence to say, what do you really know, John? But other people do know about these things. And so if that's any validation, that's the only validation I give you, short of President Biden standing up there and telling you the same thing. What happened at Roswell actually happened. The government knows about it.
Yeah.
And the government does not want you to know about it. Because back then, during the Cold War, there was a great fear that people would not be able to process this. In order to process it, people will have to raise their consciousness to do that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I don't know if the LSD we distributed to college campuses, to Professor Timothy Leary and other college professors to experiment on, may have launched a New Age movement, may have raised people's consciousness in that chemical way. But the fact that we had the Summer of Love, that people were like questioning authority and things like that, that kind of fit into what the CIA needed done. We needed people to be receptive to the point where CIA actually contributed some information to science fiction movies.
Yeah.
That showed aliens in it. Not all benevolent, but mostly very friendly. Aliens in them. And so I would say, yes, that I felt like I was drawn to it, but so were many others. And for me, it's, in a way, it was validation for me to be there, but I already verified everything before I even stepped into the halls of CIA.
Right. Right. What I love is that the conversation can take us towards talking about consciousness. Right. And I see some hands up, but that's, for me, there's a real meat in there. I'm with you when I'm kind of like not interested in crash retrieval. I know, is it real? Is it not real? Like that for me, like, okay, cool. I want to hang out in the, the consciousness, the like, how did we use CIA technology to launch into, Merkaba activation and our higher capacities. And that's where, so that's where it's at. I think a lot of the questions are coming out on that line as well too. So I'd like to go into a few of them, but I love how you acknowledge both sides. You weave together, that this information is really like in service of our expansion, right? That's one of the drums I beat a lot. And so to me, that uplifts the CIA in my perspective of like, oh yeah, it really could be used for our benefit. And there are lots of ways that it was, from what I'm hearing. But I love that you point towards the higher consciousness piece of it, and how you know, a lot of us, there's, you know, there's so many great calls, questions. We started with the orbs there for a minute, and then Jay Paul had a question about orange orbs, and then there's also, I know Court's got his hand up. So let's see, now that was just a teaser for Jay Paul if I dropped that. Are there any?
We can have one question. I'm going to be bringing the people back from break, and then we're going to be able to share the contact experiences, and then any other question. If there is time, we'll be able to do questions. So, so pick a good one. This could be your last one.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so then if Court always has such great questions, if he's got his hands up, should we wait? Should we go for him, or should I?
Yeah, let's go for him. Let's pull him out of here.
Go for it.
Let me try to find you, Court. Okay, got you.
Court's part of our Exo Studies group, so he's a very familiar face.
Awesome.
John, thank you so much, and Nadi, for bringing us all together. And just extending, John, the theme of physics and metaphysics. What is your experience telling you about the presence of shadow in the larger universe? The presence of all of, you know, the shadows that we know we have in terms of our human experience, but there appear to be shadows at a much larger scale, and that's, I guess, where that's the thrust of my question.
When you say shadow,
Either in terms of,
can you common term of reference for shadows? What do you mean by shadow?
I'm talking about, okay, I'm using that as a metaphor for what is sometimes called the dark side and sometimes called evil, and sometimes referenced as those visitors or alien civilizations that have less than positive intentions.
Well, yes, I got you.
Okay. It's
Right. I got you.
It's whatever scale your experience has shown.
All right.
That's okay.
Okay. So imagine we right now just wondrously, miraculously discovered how to travel faster than the speed of light. Imagine we discovered some way of traveling through wormholes, and we humans, as we are now, show up in another planet, in another civilization. Do you think we'll be as benevolent? Look at who we are. We are a planet of tribal warfare. Interplanetary tribal warfare defines this planet. We are not united. We're divided. We have things called sovereign nations, which divide us. We have social economic classes that divide us. We have racial divides, just based on the vibrational level of one skin color. Basically, remember when I talk about color, it's basically another wavelength of light on a human. Why are we dividing ourselves like that? If we discover a way to travel right now, I wouldn't want us to travel right now. We're not ready to go out there, and we definitely would not be seen as benevolent aliens to another people who may be less advanced than us. So I'm sure that they're flesh and blood extraterrestrials, you know, like us, that whatever physiology they have, they may not have the best interest at heart. Also, the second thing is consider the possibility that we're reading the Bible all wrong, that what you should read, it was that there were two sides. One who wanted to elevate, enhance human consciousness by giving us the tree of knowledge, and another side who wanted to enslave us into worshiping them, who said, this is the tree of life. And just read it all the way different. And oh my goodness, you see everything laid out in terms of an intervention that happened in the human race. Come, let us make man in our image. Think about that. And also, I always ask, you know, to a and I don't want to disparage anyone's belief system. There are people who believe in the literal words they see. And I point out some literal words. Explain to me what this means. And it's Genesis 6 about the Nephilim. There were giants on the earth, the sons of heaven, seeing the sons of the daughters of man being attractive and intermarrying. What is that all about? Right there, there's an extraterrestrial seeing an earth woman and creating hybrids. To me, that is more of an allegory of our hybrid nature, our hybrid existence, and that we may have been very advanced. How many times have we destroyed ourselves in the past? And maybe there was a group of people that, separated from us at breakaway. And maybe there are others left in power who were hybrids of another type of alien that are more like reptilian. And maybe they're the ones in charge right now. So this is just food for thought. And it's nothing official from CIA or anybody. This is just me talking, that we have to consider that possibility as well. So there's the shadow side. But I wouldn't want us to go out right now. We're not ready. We're not even, we look at the events of the world. Look what's happening in the Middle East. No way should we be traveling out in space. No way.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Court.
Thank you, John.
So Zenka, where do we go now? Because I really do want to ask your question too.
Okay, well, we'll see if we get to it. It's okay.
Okay.
We have John as part of our community, and we look forward to more interactions. We can always spin off and do other broadcasts, right? And answer it again. It doesn't have to be just the second Friday and the fourth Friday. So I just wanted to, before we go into our contact stories, so this is a chance for you guys to share what your contact experience is like, right? To share your curiosity, your invitation with everybody out there. I also want to let you know that Nadi is having an event, and I'm going to show it here on Saturday.
Oh, that graphic.
Let's see. Oh, is that okay? It's so funny. I love how it is. Look at the body. It's hilarious. Yeah. So she's just wanted to know, this is some of, she does all sorts of things about, drawing sacred geometry, meditation, sounds, Merkaba fields, all sorts of interesting things. She's got an event tomorrow at 2 to 4 p.m. So I'm going to share that link in the screen. We recently did a fundraiser for our nonprofit so that we can build amazing software for the consortium of groups, and we created NFTs. So who owns a little bit of crypto? Does anybody own crypto? Does anybody figured out their wallet? Okay, good. Well, I encourage you to test out your skills and connect to Rarible or OpenSea, because Nadi has a light body activation NFT here. It's a $100 donation. You get this piece of artwork. You can own your own NFT. And once we fill up the class of 10, she's going to do this really cool session with us. 100% of the money is going to go to support her work in the world. The other NFTs here are going to support programming with Daniel and other things. So we have a channel to the future, which you can get with two of my favorite channelers in the world, Michaela Sheldon and Lincoln Garagar, who are donating for that. We have a past life regression that's incredible, astral travel sessions with Adam Apollo. You can do VR in a float tank, right? So you won't feel your body anymore, you'll have VR. And also the Lucia light, which is, a light that flashes and induces a hypnotic state. I just want to also show you, for those of you that are new tonight to our call, we do have fourth Friday of every month is going to be with Neil Gar of Portal to Ascension. He has an incredible story about how he went from being a financial advisor to running a huge platform for all these classes. Membership is $4 a month, $4.44 a month, and we encourage you to get on the list to do that, to support the work, and also join us for our fourth Friday member-only event. So right now, I'm going to put into the chat this Exo release button. So again, we ask If you haven't shared before, we'd like to give an opportunity to people who are new to the call, right, to share their contact experience tonight. It can be, like I said, any type of contact, radio contact, meditation, dreams, whatever it is. And we're going to put this out as sort of a docu-series. So I ask that if you share it tonight, that you're willing to be part of that project and be on YouTube and things like that. If we don't have any shares, we'll go to some questions for the last 15 minutes. So, and I ask that you keep your shares pretty short, so 3 to 4 minutes. If anybody wants to share, I would like you to raise your hand, and I will see if I can find you here. You can do that on the reactions button here in the bottom, or you could just physically raise your hand.
Olga, yay!
Olga, okay, cool. I'm trying to find your name.
Yeah.
Let's see. Can you unpin her if you see her? I'm still scrolling through the pages here.
Yeah. Let's see. I can pin her. Where is she?
Okay, I've got you.
Great.
All right, welcome, Olga. Thanks for being here. Go ahead.
Thank you. Oh, I loved hearing John's experience and his presentation. I thought he was explaining an extremely difficult, complex topic really clearly. So thank you, John. I've been with Nadi for a few years now. She's been teaching me the sacred geometry. I love it. Very into meditation, as well as Ayurveda. And I was mentioning that to some of the gals in my breakout room. So I've studied Ayurveda for 500 hours, and it's had a lot to do with the chakras and the bringing the body, mind, spirit into balance. But I came to a bit of a crossroads in the fall, because I could either continue on. I'd already done 500 hours, but I could continue on to another 800 hour. And my soul felt called, but my analytical mind said, gosh, what are you going to do with all of this? So I was listening to a book on Audible called Psychic Pathway. And the author is telling us that when you want, that we rely on our own strength a lot, and that we should ask for signs, that we should ask when we have questions, or like we need to make a decision, we should ask like the energy and the higher beings around us, and that we will be given the insights. So I'm driving to see my teacher to have a conversation that's going to define whether I go forward in the 800 hour or just not proceed. And as I'm driving into Portland, I come to the Ross Island Bridge, and I'm facing north. And all of a sudden, I'd heard this message in the morning on the book. And then I said, I do rely on my own energy. I do want a sign. And then I'm at the Ross Island Bridge. I'm about to turn on, and I see these lights appear over the buildings in Portland. And I was just like, what? And I have worked downtown for years. And so I know what's there. And I said, the first thought that came to my mind was, is that a baseball stadium? Or is that like a billboard that's all lit up? But why would it be up so high? And I have 20/20 vision. And so I'm just staring harder. And what I realized is that, so then I took a picture with my phone, and I submitted this picture to this man who has a YouTube channel called Mr. BBB333 or something like that. He's a guy that's all about these images. So he put it on his show, and he looked at it with different colored lenses. And some people were like, that's amazing. And other people were like, it's a reflection of the guy's lights behind you and all this. I know what I saw. I wanted to take a picture. There you go. Thank you, Zenka. It was just, I believe that day, at that time, I was shown something to confirm that I was on the right path. I ultimately went on to the 800 program. I'm in there now, and it's all been life-changing for me. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for sharing. That's so cool. Yeah, ask and you shall receive, right? Ask, be intentional. Yeah, and there may even be like some sort of interference thing. So like a law that you have to ask in order for it to happen. So some people believe that you do have to invite. Is there anybody else that wants to share a contact experience tonight? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and add you. Welcome. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. There are a couple things that come to mind. My heart's beating fast. Nadi knows this happens to me. I have had a lot of dream contact. This white wall is a big thing for me that is very present as I live in a box of white walls. And there's one time in particular, this white glowing wall was to my left. The left seems super important. And these hands just come out to me and they hand me a crystal ball. And I was like, are those my hands? Those aren't my hands. They were my hands. It is so beautiful. And I think about that all the time. And then just really quickly, I know limited time here, I've shared this with Nadi. I do shamanic practitioner work. I do journey meditations. And the first time I met with my practitioner that night, I was staring up at the clouds and just like jotting down, be like, oh, that looks like a turtle. That looks like a bird. And then out of seemingly nowhere, there's a lion. And then right next to it, off to the right, it's this eyeball that I've been drawing since I was a child. And that we all know that and I questioned it for a second and I looked at it until I couldn't anymore because it was kind of scary. And I was like, I'm going to go inside now. Thank you for that, whoever that was. And now I have a awareness that it may have been Syrians. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you so much for sharing. Awesome. We're the map team, Kenny and Greg and Daniel are working on a way for us to categorize our experiences by races. So we can put that in Syrian, we can put, an Andromeda section out. So we're really excited that you shared and that's great. Does anybody else want to share tonight? You can raise your hands as the reactions, or you could just raise your physical hand. If not, we're going to open it up to questions. So questions can come in. You guys can raise your hand and now ask a question since there's no more contact experiences. So I guess I could ask my question, John. My question was, you talked about the electromagnetic fields here in Sedona. Is that why people see more things here? Who knows? And also the question was, is there other things that people, or is there man-made machines that will amplify similar to a physical vortex on Earth, someone's electromagnetic fields, helping them make contact with their higher self or other dimensions?
I don't know. I don't think there's, I personally believe that everything you have doesn't need to be amplified. It just needs to be tuned. It's not an amplification. So you can meditate like there's no tomorrow, and it might not be any effective, but if you have a quality meditation where you're tuning yourself. And the first part of that is to find out what is your fundamental wavelength? What frequency are you at to begin with? And then to tune to where you want to be. It's more of a tuning. And for me, it was more experimental. And so when I tune to the color green. I oscillate in that color, green. And if you look at that prior spectrum, and you can look up the light spectrum anywhere on the web, orange is like 600 nanometers, and green is going to be a little bit longer than that. And so it's a little bit of tuning through. Some people tune yellow, some people tune red. It doesn't matter. You're tuning your own vibrations to that wavelength. And once you tune in, I think you'll find that everything will come through. And for me, I used to see, I can close my eyes and see images develop in my inner mind or my inner heart. And I tell people, stop thinking with your mind and feeling with your heart. Do the opposite. Why don't you feel with your mind and think with your heart? Mm-hmm. And that's like flipping the poles a little bit. Just flip it. And basically that flipping of the poles, if you take a magnet and you do this real fast, you know what you create? You create energy. And that's why you see dynamos. They twirl and twirl and twirl and twirl and make energy. So this flipping is what creates the energy. You get a magnet, north and south poles, flip, 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 flip. That's what I do. I tune, not amplify. So I don't know of a machine that can do that, but I know that you don't need to do that.
Very cool.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. I have to call Zenka out here just a moment on your question. Like, that was fabulous. Really wanting to hear that. And you skipped the first sentence of your question, which I was really interested in.
Okay, cool. You go for it.
That's
Yeah.
the one I was really hoping you were gonna go.
Okay. I'm like a techie, man. I'm like because people are taking like copper pills, and maybe you could have like something on your body that's a crystal or a metal. So I was just, and then there's the machines my mind got to, but let's ask.
I know, but let's you're so great. Let's maybe finish, because I know we're getting towards the end, but if anybody didn't see it, the first sentence of her question said, "Can you talk more about the galactic headquarters?" Which I would really like to hear as well. So great, we got the tech part. Can you speak anything to if you visited, or what your intel is on any of that we, I think we all want to be in the galactic headquarters, and probably everybody on this call would like to be able to get there. So anything that you can, any tips or clues that you can give us about it, we'd love it.
The remote viewing technique is based on a coordinate system, and the coordinates don't really mean anything. It's just that the mind needs to be grounded somewhere in the universe, and so they would like spew out random numbers to be coordinates. In fact, the original name for the remote viewing program was not Stargate; it was called ScanNate, Scan by Coordinate. And so they just put out a number, and so think about that number, think about where you are, and they would just go into a meditative state, and they describe themselves as feeling themselves in a vortex of energy swirling around. You know that as the Merkaba field, but they were creating Merkaba fields as part of this process. And when they did that, basically they were led to where they needed to go. And so one of the remote viewers, Mel Riley, went to this galactic headquarters, and he reported it. As he was doing his drawings and remote viewing, it's almost like automatic writing. I took a remote viewing course that was offered by Ed Dames. I actually purchased it. And part of his technique was you get a pad and pencil, and you just like whatever, when you're in that state, you just scribble things, and all of a sudden things started to come to you. And what he imagined was being on another planet, and he saw this lake, and he was led inside this mountain in a hallway, and then there were these beings there. And he was invited to lie down on this bed, basically, some platform, and they were all surrounding him and talking to him, and revealed that he was at a galactic headquarters, and that was all written up. I actually have that report. I can share it. I think I may have shared it in the Exo studies, if you look at that, but I don't know how to share that report through Exo Metaverse. Maybe I'll just send it to you, Zenka, so you can probably post it somewhere.
Yeah,
It's all available. That and visiting Mars, which had an ancient civilization on Mars and things like that. So there are a lot of things revealed through these remote viewing sessions, and they're not like, and some of it was like, this is a top secret Russian submarine. Some of it was just nuts and bolts weapons, but a lot of it was really, really esoteric. And so that was not considered unusual until word of it got out, like I said, into the political world, and a lot of forces wanted that shut down because they didn't know what it was. They thought it was all. In fact, a lot of folks in positions of power would think what we're doing is demonic. They would not see this as something positive for humanity. So I would happy to share more about the galactic headquarters. It goes into great detail.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely share that out with the recording and also the closing survey. So I would we're going to close now. I would just invite you guys to share any other like parting comments. We'll start with Nadi and then go to you, John. Is there anything that you want to share right now with this group and the world in general?
Oh, well, that's fun. I'm feeling really grateful to have had this opportunity. And I think the at its core, it's to be with like-minded people who know that there's so much else happening out there and in here, and to validate each other with this knowing, and the drum I'm always beating is about our multidimensionality, right? And I think these conversations really help us to understand how much more of us there is, and so I'm so appreciative, and thank you, Zenka, for hosting the space, and John, thank you so much. And for, I know there's tech, what are angels? I know, thank you, tech angels. You're muted.
We can thank the tech angels right now before we let John have the final word here tonight. So I want to thank Rob for being on tonight and also helping out with the videos and setting up the restream. You've been amazing. And I also want to thank Greg for his tireless work programming the map. It's really amazing. And Daniel as well. Also want to thank Karina and Sharon and everybody else in the consortium. So thanks for everything you're doing for the movement.
I just want to say, in final words, please treat this sacred vessel we call the human body, treat it with respect, feed it proper foods, proper nutrition, feed it proper liquids. It needs water to survive, or mostly water, because you are a container of that light energy that's within you. And if you're very quiet and very still, tune out the world and tune it in, and you're going to get some remarkable messages. They're waiting to talk to you, but you have to be willing and prepared to listen. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. See you in a couple weeks. Have a great evening.
Okay, after party.